Hello, everybody. Brian Engelman here with TheNewAmericanMedia.com. This is the Unhappy Hour. This is an impromptu, unscheduled show because guess what? Koby Altman, new Cavs general manager, has put his stamp on the franchise, and we have a trade. The Cavs have moved disgruntled former point guard Kyrie Irving to the Boston Celtics for a whole bunch of pieces, including Isaiah Thomas, an unprotected pick from the Nets, Jay Crowder, and some dude whose name I got Zizic, and I got to figure out what he's all about. I'm hearing he might be a steal or he might be moved for another piece. So I figured I should bring in former NBA scout Zak Baris to kind of break this stuff down for us, as we've been talking Cleveland sports with Zak for about 5 or 6 years now. So, Zak, walk us through what the heck just happened.
So, apparently this deal has not been in the works for a long time, from my understanding.
Okay.
But, it's a deal that materialized very, very quickly. And I'm honestly shocked that Danny Ainge, after all the failed trades, has finally put something together to land Kyrie Irving when he could have given up significantly less to land Paul George and Jimmy Butler.
Oh, both of them. So he could have had Paul George and Jimmy Butler.
You're not going to have Gordon Hayward, Jimmy Butler, and Paul George all on the same team. I'm just saying. What Danny Ainge did here is let's review the trade real quick. He got Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's a fantastic point guard, but he's more of a two guard than he is a point guard. Let's just face it. Thomas is, there's a good chance you see Kyrie win the scoring title next year. I'm not saying that's a great thing for Boston, but there's a good chance. We watched what he did in games without LeBron. The Cavaliers, let's face it, were not a very good team with just Kyrie leading the charge. They weren't. Let's be honest here. They weren't. Thomas did have a higher PER last season. The Cavaliers got a really nice piece in Jay Crowder, and they got potentially what's the number 1 overall pick in the draft next year from Brooklyn, and a center who they can go and move around in another trade. He's not very athletic, but he does score in volume. He's just not very athletic, is my understanding after reading his scouting report.
Can you compare him? Can you compare him to Mozgov?
No,
based on what
I have not seen him play. I'm not going to compare him to anyone.
Okay, but
anyone I haven't seen play, I can't compare. Fair. I would never do that.
Fair. Okay.
It's just stupidity on my end. So what I'll tell you is, Jay Crowder, you get a very athletic 3-and-D player. He shot, I think it was 39.8% last year from three-point land, if I'm not mistaken. So he can shoot the three. He's not someone you want shooting, 7-8 times a game. But, he's a very good athletic defender. He's definitely an upgrade over Richard Jefferson. Let's take a look at the Cavs this year. You went from having your roster last year to having guys like Darren Williams and Kyrie Irving, and you turn that into you turn Darren Williams and Kyrie Irving into Derrick Rose, Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and don't forget the Cavaliers still have some movable contracts in the roster. They have Iman Shumpert, who's very tradable. Especially with Crowder coming in. I don't want to say very tradable. He doesn't, Cavaliers will have to give up something to get something, but let's say hypothetically. The Cavaliers can move Channing Frye's contract, which has 1 year left on it, and Iman Shumpert. Combining, I think Frye's making about $8 or $9 million, and Shumpert's making 10. So you can go and move those two pieces along with the number 1 overall pick. This isn't a trade exception, so you can package along players with it. And, we looked at Detroit was trying to move up and possibly trade Andre Drummond for a top 3 to top 5 pick in last year's draft. The Pelicans might struggle again this season. You might see them try to move DeMarcus Cousins for a trade like that. And also get a nice young piece in the deal too in the center. So the Cavaliers do have options. Again, Portland, C.J. McCollum. Although I think you're better off picking out in the top 3 to top 5 and what's going to be an extremely talented draft next year. Than trading, a potentially top 3 to top 5 pick for C.J. McCollum to Portland. However, I'm just saying hypothetically, going down the list and seeing what teams, what you can get for certain guys, the Cavaliers are going to have a lot of flexibility. Koby has definitely put a stamp on the roster. Let's just say the Cavaliers are they're able to make this trade at some point during the season. They have flexibility now where if they feel like they have an opportunity to beat the Golden State Warriors and they're that one piece away, they will move that pick to go win another championship. It will also help keep LeBron in Cleveland. I mean, the reports are finally surfacing of Dwayne Wade being bought out in Chicago, most likely joining the Cleveland Cavaliers. You could walk into a roster this season with, and this I'm not joking when I say this, with Andre Drummond as your starting 5, Kevin Love as your starting 4, LeBron as your 3, Crowder at the 2, and you have Isaiah Thomas as the 1. Off your bench, you have Tristan Thompson, Derrick Rose,
Dwayne
Wade, J.R. Smith. I'm trying to think who else would be there. Richard Jefferson, or Kyle Korver, Richard Jefferson.
Oh, yeah, Corby. I keep forgetting he's on the team. Jeez.
You know, the Cavaliers could walk in there with an incredibly stacked roster. Again, on the older end. But again, if you have the potential to acquire a young superstar like Drummond and put together your package of your big 4 in Cleveland of having Drummond, who would make up for the lack of an interior presence, suddenly, you're putting that in the end, is having Drummond there in the center, the center position to stop Golden State, because Isaiah Thomas is a huge defensive liability. He's probably the worst defending point guard in the NBA, so it's not going to help him with guarding Steph Curry. However, Derrick Rose will still be out there. It's just the problem is Isaiah Thomas is not a good matchup against Golden State. But he can definitely score the basketball. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Right.
Don't forget, he was second team All-NBA last season. Kyrie Irving was not on any of the All-NBA teams.
It's a little weird.
Kyrie Irving was better in the playoffs than Isaiah Thomas, though.
Well, yeah.
And that's what counts.
Now that we're talking about the playoffs, let me ask about something else. And I'm getting some questions here on Facebook Live. I'm going to get to these. So if you have questions on Facebook Live, type them in right here, and I'll try to scroll back and ask Zach these questions. When we saw Isaiah in the playoffs, we saw him get injured, and I remember we had the conversation saying Boston got better without Isaiah Thomas. So what does that tell you about him as a player? So
it was a matchup scenario. They were not better without him. They matched up better against Cleveland in that scenario because he couldn't guard Kyrie Irving.
Okay.
The Cavaliers will still be able to take care of that, and I mean, I'm not worried about the Cavaliers going in there. Don't forget, Boston doesn't have Avery Bradley anymore. They don't.
Okay. But
Boston no longer has Avery Bradley.
So Bradley's gone. Now Thomas is gone. But in the playoffs last year, not to mention, just saying that, did they get better without him? They just played a different style of game that was making it a little bit more competitive against the Cavs afterward, but not really. What about the hip injury with Isaiah Thomas? Should we be concerned about that or no big deal?
It's something to be slightly concerned about. If he's healthy, though, I mean, don't forget he'll be undergoing a physical tomorrow in Cleveland. So if he is healthy, they're fine.
Is the trade contingent upon getting a medical clearance, or is it either way?
I don't know at this point. I would assume it's a medical clearance, and I assume he'll be cleared. If the Cavaliers made that trade, I think they probably know how he's doing.
Okay, let me do this. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here. I want to say hi to Carl and Bob and Chris and Scott and Jamie and Todd and Darren and Doug and Greg and Kate and everybody else. Deshaun, Belinda, Tony, everybody that's watching here. I want to go through some of these questions that are coming in so we don't get too far behind. Chris Cook is saying he loves the trade.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to also mention that Jeff Green is on the Cavs roster as well.
Wait, what happened with that?
The Cavaliers also signed Jeff Green this offseason as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, we did. Where was he at last? Charlotte?
Orlando. Signed a 1-year, $16 million deal last year in Orlando.
And what did we get him for?
The veteran minimum.
Oh, okay. You expect him to be contributing?
He'll be a contributing factor. That's what I'm saying, though. If you look at this, and the Cavaliers do add Dwayne Wade, and let's say hypothetically, either they're walking in there with the top 5 pick in next year's draft, or they're walking out of there with a superior player going in next year, going, okay, we just added a guy like Boogie Cousins or Andre Drummond to this roster, along with Dwayne Wade, along with Jeff Green, along with Derrick Rose. The Cavaliers would be significantly upgraded over last year's roster, bench included and starting lineup at that point.
Well, how much of that, though, comes down to how many quarters do we have trying to take on dollar bills? This is all about beating the Warriors.
The thing is, Isaiah Thomas is essentially, Isaiah Thomas is second team All-NBA. It's not like we traded LeBron. We traded Kyrie Irving. We traded $1. Essentially got, the thing is, if, last year, pound for pound, Thomas was the better player than Irving. He's the reason he was a second team All NBA and Kyrie was not. Pound for pound, we got dollar for dollar plus 50 cents on the dollar, and they acquired another. I mean, the thing is, the Cavaliers could have acquired $2 for $1 in this deal. But the one thing that worries me about Isaiah Thomas is that Isaiah Thomas is 29 years old. He's a free agent after the year, and he's due for another max contract if he puts up numbers like that. Are you willing to give that for what will be a 30-year-old point guard in free agency? That's 5'9".
So are we so then if we clear that space off the cap, though, off of the books, does that allow us to go out and sign another big-name player instead because we're clearing all that salary?
Well, they could have. I mean, the Cavaliers just cleared about $30 million in luxury tax tonight. $20 to $30 million in luxury tax tonight by trading Irving and making this deal.
How does that walk me through? How does that work? Because don't the trades have to be similar financially?
The Cavaliers took on less money than they gave up. Boston wasn't above the cap.
Okay, elaborate on that a little bit. I'm trying to understand exactly how this plays out.
The Cavaliers were able to take on less money in the deal, so they saved on the cap. Now, Isaiah Thomas is due for a max extension after the year, so his salary will be higher than Irving's a year from now. Just not yet.
Okay, so because we were over the cap, we were allowed to go under in the trade. Is that what you said?
Yes. Boston was not over the cap.
But if we were not over the cap, it would have to be an equal amount or roughly an equal amount.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, then hopefully this isn't just a cost-saving maneuver by Dan Gilbert. But, I mean, obviously when you're getting someone like Isaiah Thomas and
I don't think this is a cost-saving maneuver on any means. Judging by what Indiana got for Paul George, getting Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, they got ripped off. What Chicago got for Jimmy Butler, they essentially moved up a couple picks and they got Zach LaVine and Chris Dunn, who's kind of a bust. I'm not saying LaVine is, but Chris Dunn is. I know it's only been 1 year, but he's just not very good. Minnesota made out like bandits in that deal. Cleveland got very, very strong value for Irving, considering that he was a name that had already, requested a trade. It was a big deal for Cleveland to land this kind of deal. I mean, don't forget, Phoenix wasn't even willing to go Josh Jackson, Eric Bledsoe for Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, the Suns trade was the one that was seeming like it was going to make the most sense as this was playing out over the past few weeks. For a minute, but obviously it didn't.
I think that's the most Danny Ainge. You wonder why Danny Ainge was so reluctant to trade some pieces for Jimmy Butler or Paul George. It just doesn't make any sense why he didn't do it. Judging by what those guys got traded for, and he would have still had Isaiah Thomas. He would have given him far less to get Jimmy Butler or Paul George, who are arguably better than Kyrie Irving or just as good. In a deal. That's what doesn't make sense to me.
Well, maybe they rate him a lot higher, and they like the fact that he's under control for a couple of years. Although his trade request shows that what good does being under control mean when the players seem to have the power to say, I want out, and then they get out. But maybe they viewed him better. They liked his contract better. They thought he was a better fit. But if I were a potential GM, if I were Danny Ainge, I would have concerns about this. I would have concerns about Kyrie Irving's injury history. I would have concerns about Kyrie Irving thinking that the world is flat. I would have concerns about Kyrie Irving not wanting to play with the world's greatest player. Perhaps the best player of all time.
But yeah, and that's the problem. Is Kyrie good enough to be a dynamic one? The dynamic player on a championship team. We watched, and being honest, we've watched Kevin Durant and we watched Steph Curry sacrifice his game after he won a championship and lost Game 7 in the final second to win more championships, to bring on the second best player in the NBA. We watched Steph Curry take a step back last season. The unanimous MVP took a step back so he could win another title.
Yeah. But Kyrie wants to step it up by, it's, you know what, I got real concerns.
Now, Boston is not going to defeat Golden State, even if they do get past Cleveland, which I think is highly unlikely. I don't see Boston getting past Golden State. I think Golden State crushes them. Boston's big three is Horford, who's not as good as Love, Hayward, who's not as good as LeBron, and Kyrie, who's still Kyrie, but you think you're going to replace LeBron with Gordon Hayward and get past them? No. and you got rid of Jay Crowder and Avery Bradley, your two best wing defenders,
and a potential number one pick. Yeah, it's kind of a strange deal. And I want to ask you, like, I'm falling.
I mean, here's another name to bring up other than Andre Drummond. Let's assume that Utah has a very bad season without Gordon Hayward, and a name like Rudy Gobert becomes available. Do you take the Brooklyn pick and turn it into Rudy Gobert possibly? There's a chance a deal like that happens. And if you're Cleveland and you can get a guy like Rudy Gobert, an athletic 5 who blocks a ton of shots, is an unbelievable defender, for that pick, and you're trading out a piece from the trade you just got, and suddenly you've got Rudy Gobert, Jay Crowder, and Isaiah Thomas or Kyrie Irving. Who would you take in that deal? All day I'm taking option number 2. I'm taking Gobert, Crowder, and Thomas over Kyrie Irving. It's not even a close one.
Okay, let me. The pieces. Trying to figure this out. This is so frustrating because I was viewing Kyrie Irving as a hero, as the guy we drafted. He brought home the championship.
You can still view him as that guy. He just, you know what, Brian, take it for what it is. Cheer him. Give him a golf clap when he comes back to Cleveland for the opener on October 17th, and that's it. No more. You don't need to cheer him. You don't need to boo him. It is what it is. In 15 years from now, he'll be cheered. Don't forget, he still drained the shot to get the Cavaliers their first title ever.
All right. Yeah, I know. Okay.
I don't like the way it ended, and I don't think he was very smart about it. But we'll see in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it's his life. He's allowed to live it how he wants. I'm going to get to some of these questions so they don't get backing up too much here.
Right.
Maybe we could do a little bit of a rapid fire. Okay, so Chris Cook, he said he loves the trade. He says you get a solid defender plus a point guard that produces better numbers and a first-round pick. It's a no-brainer. Are you in the same camp, Zach? It's a no-brainer.
I'm more on board now than I was earlier. I didn't like the trade when I didn't see the first-round pick in there. I was blown away. I was like, you've got to be kidding me, is what I said.
Yeah.
Then when I saw Brooklyn's pick in there, I was like, wait a second. You have tons of flexibility now that you didn't have before.
Well, remember,
Cleveland has flexibility in every trade offer they make.
Well, remember,
don't forget, Phil Jackson, the Knicks would have given up Porzingis for the number 2 or 3 overall pick in last year's draft.
And you're saying next year's draft is a better draft than last year?
Yes. I mean, here's the thing. The Cavaliers could wind up, again, let's say the Knicks again, again, you never know where you could get with Porzingis.
That's true because he doesn't like playing there either. But does Porzingis get us closer to beating Golden State? That's what all these trades have to come down to. But I remember the reports coming out last week saying that one of the stumbling blocks was that the Cavs wanted someone that can contribute now, and they wanted a top pick so that they could get somebody to contribute next year, especially if LeBron James leaves and you have to rebuild the franchise. This
Brian,
deal does a little bit of both.
Here's the thing. They got a top-notch player to go along with LeBron. You got an excellent wing defender who helps out LeBron. And then what you also got in the deal was you got what is basically, Brooklyn we already know is not going to be the 8th seed in the playoffs. They're not going to win more than 25, 26 games.
And I'm okay with that. I am now strongly rooting against the Brooklyn Nets. Every loss gets us closer to a top pick. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And makes that asset more valuable throughout the season of the deadline. If Brooklyn has 9 wins at the trade deadline, that pick's going to have astronomical value at number 1.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Christopher.
And sending Nick Gilbert to the lottery, you know how those dice are rolling. You know how those balls are dropping.
Does he still have those cool? Does he still?
We know what pick it's coming in at.
Does Gilbert still have those cool little glasses?
Yeah, he does not have very good eyesight, so yes.
Hey, whatever. As long as he brings us his number 1 picks and LeBron James, I'm fine with Gilbert's kid being there. Christopher Cook is asking about team chemistry because Thomas can be a little selfish with the ball. What are your thoughts on that, team chemistry, from Isaiah?
So is Kyrie. Kyrie can be selfish with the ball as well. Kyrie's not exactly a passer. Isaiah averaged 5.9 assists last year to Kyrie's 5.8. They're essentially the same with the ball.
Well, another question here from Todd Perrell. He's saying that Boston got worse on defense. Obviously, Jay Crowder's a heck of a defender. But, the
They
point
lost
guard,
Crowder and they lost Avery Bradley. That's why they're worse on defense. They're not worse on defense because they lost Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is the worst defending point guard in the NBA.
because he's so small.
Yes. He just can't put it together. He's so teeny. You can exploit him every play. Kyrie Irving is a bad defender because he doesn't give any effort. Kyrie Irving could easily be a good defender if we want to. We've witnessed him be a decent defender before. Look at game 1 of the finals 3 years ago. Yes. Kyrie Irving was a good defender.
Yeah,
in that game. He's played his fair share of good defensive games in his career. However, he does not put together in a consistent basis. I don't think he cares.
Right. Well, see, and that's the problem with Kyrie. It's his effort, and that goes back to what Scott in the chat room here on Facebook Live, he's saying, "Hey, cuz, I'm glad he's gone. A disgruntled employee isn't going to give 100%. Every player on every team needs to give 100% plus if they want to dethrone Golden State." I mean, that kind of speaks to what I was saying about my concerns with Kyrie. Where's his head at? I mean, do you think – I don't know. I mean, do you think he could have found a way to be successful if he had stayed on the Cavs, or just he had already made up his mind and he was checking out?
He was successful on the Cavs. He could have still been successful.
Yeah, I mean, next year could he have been successful, or has he already checked out? Was there any
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what was going through his head. But he's gone now, and it's not something we ever have to worry about. He'll never play with LeBron James again.
What if he comes back? The return. I'm coming home.
It's not. I mean, if it happens, it's not going to be for another 7-8 years. It's not happening now, and it's not happening soon.
Yeah, all right. I'm moving past it. Chris is asking, or he's saying Thomas can learn to step up his all-around game playing with LeBron. That's something I talked with you a bit.
His defense will not improve under any circumstance, so don't even get the wrong impression. It just won't. I mean, you got to be realistic sometimes, and it's not going to improve.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, Darren is saying he thinks the Cavs won this trade. Carl Fern is saying, I wish Kyrie the best. I'm looking forward to seeing Thomas and LeBron playing together. What kind of dynamic do you see with Isaiah Thomas and LeBron James? Do you see that being a natural fit, the types of players that they are?
I think it'll be a good fit. I'm interested to see what happens. I really am. I really don't know how this is going to work out. I really don't.
Todd is asking how close.
But I think LeBron can really play with anyone.
I think you're right, and I think this season is going to prove that. You're going to see him with all these different superstars now hopefully going to the championship. We'll see how that plays out. Todd is asking, how close does this put the Celtics to the Cavs? Like you were saying, you match them up 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3. It's not even. I mean, is it not even close? Is Kyrie now the best player on the Celtics? He's their best?
Kyrie's their best player. The Cavaliers still have LeBron. They still have Love. They still have Isaiah Thomas. They have Jay Crowder. They have Derrick Rose. They have Tristan Thompson. Pound for pound, the Cavaliers roster is deeper than it was a year ago now. It is. It's much significantly deeper.
Yeah. And you got Kyle Korver with another season under his belt in a totally new system.
Well, I don't know if that's a good thing. Kyle Korver is also in his late 30s, so I don't know if that's a good thing, Brian.
Oh, okay. Fine. Fair enough. Chris is asking, did we get the best trade out there for him? Was there anything else that might have
Again, like I told you on the show a few weeks ago, Koby was not going to sit there and get ripped off in a trade. He's a very, very bright young mind. He's a few years older than I am, obviously. But Koby knows what he's doing. He was the last person I would have thought would get ripped off in a trade, and he didn't. The fact that he was able to get Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and a 2018 Brooklyn's pick was huge. It's huge. The Cavaliers, for someone who didn't want to be here, after seeing what Indiana got, again, for Paul George, and seeing what Chicago got for Jimmy Butler, Cleveland made out great in this deal.
Yeah, I think so, too. Carl is asking, is Brooklyn's pick protected? And my understanding is that it's unprotected.
No, it is unprotected.
That is astonishing. I felt like they might have added that in there.
Cavaliers would not have done this deal without the unprotected pick. That was one of the deals with Phoenix, why the Phoenix deal never happened. Cleveland wanted Phoenix's unprotected pick for next year.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's one of the biggest parts here. And if next year's draft turns into a gangbusters draft, I mean, it could be the pick that's the primary score for the franchise as it's moving forward. We'll see how it works out. Let's see.
I mean, just a couple weeks ago, these idiots were talking about a Carmelo for Kyrie swap. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, that
was... You have guys like Jordan Schultz reporting that the Cavaliers were thinking about doing it. The Cavaliers were never even considering that deal. I know personally the Cavaliers never even considered Kyrie for Melo. Wasn't even a deal. Would have been a deal breaker if anything. Unless Porzingis was involved in the deal, there's no way it would have happened.
Or some picks. Maybe some picks.
No. Unless Porzingis was involved, it would not have happened. The Cavaliers were adamant about that. They would have done it with Carmelo in the deal. However, Porzingis had to be included in it. There was really no way to make the money work, and the Cavaliers were not giving up Love and Kyrie for Porzingis and Carmelo. It was not happening. I'm telling you, the Cavaliers were not being stupid in what they did. They were very calculated in how they made their moves.
Todd is saying Horford is overrated. I mean, he's getting old. I'll agree with you.
I don't think Al Horford's that good. And I mean, Al Horford's won, one career playoff game against Cleveland? He's 1-12.
Well, very few people have won playoff games against Cleveland with LeBron, though, to be fair.
True.
He's saying, what about the guy from the Bucks? Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's untouchable, right? Untouchable. Not even a chance. Chris is saying Kyrie will get the most points and boost his stats, but has no shot at making the playoffs. Nice work, Uncle Drew. Well, I mean, he's still going to make the playoffs, but no shot at making the championship? Maybe. I could see it. Yes, he says he means championship. Okay, he corrected himself. Hello, Jay. Hello, Robert. If you guys have questions, type them in. We're talking with Zak Baris, former NBA scout. I'm talking about Cavaliers trading Kyrie Irving for Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, whoever this Zizic guy in Brooklyn's 2018 unprotected first-round pick. I also like that it's the 2018 pick and not like the 2019 pick or something further down the road. This is something tangible that, like you said, we can either pick someone with it or we can really parlay this into a trade for someone who's ready to play right now, which is very intriguing. Okay, let me ask you this one, Zach. Does LeBron need any convincing to stay around? You seem to be convinced for a while, for a long time. He's not going anywhere. But the narrative is still out there. How's the roster? They got rid of David Griffin. How are they going to piece the team together? Kyrie wants out. It seemed like everything was lost. All hope was gone. But you've remained pretty consistent saying that LeBron is going to stick around. How much convincing does he need?
Here's the thing. The Cavaliers now have put themselves in position. Either way, whether they lose Isaiah Thomas and LeBron, they still have this top pick going into next year's draft, and then that gives them cap flexibility as well to go and maneuver different strategies along the market. In the more likely scenario, this allows the Cavs the flexibility to improve the roster around LeBron James because of the ability to trade Channing Frye and Iman Shumpert and Richard Jefferson. The Cavaliers have the flexibility to go out and move those pieces to upgrade the roster. And again, there will be players available like Rudy Gobert, possibly Andre Drummond, DeMarcus Cousins, maybe even a guy like Hassan Whiteside, although I doubt Pat Riley in dealing with Cleveland would ever work. So let's not put that one there. There will be plenty of players available for Cleveland with their pickings.
Well, look, I know that Pat Riley, might not want to deal with Cleveland, but whatever. He poached LeBron in the first place, and if the number 2 team in Boston can make a trade with number 1 Cavaliers for both of their number 1 and number 2 best player, I'd say anything can happen at this point. Let me ask you about this. Chris is asking, how much influence do you think LeBron does have on the trade decisions that are made? Is he really hands-off, or is he really hands-on behind the scenes, kind of picking what he wants to do? Did Koby Altman have to get LeBron's stamp before doing this, or did he just make the move? If you had to guess.
I'm sure they ran it by LeBron.
And so
I'm positive they ran it by LeBron. I'm sure they wouldn't make this move without having LeBron in mind.
And so LeBron had to at least give a shoulder shrug and go, all right.
I'm sure LeBron was in contact with this and was explaining the assets. So.
Okay. I mean, that seems to make sense for me. Robert's asking about what do you know about the Zizic guy? Not a lot out there. We addressed that.
I know nothing about him. He's something the Cavaliers can use as another movable asset.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I get this might
He's not very athletic. However, he produced big numbers in the EuroLeague last year. Very big numbers. He's only 20 years old.
Oh, okay. Super youngster. Gotcha. Hello to Jesse. Hello to Robert. Robert's asking in the chat room. And if anybody has any more questions, we just got a couple more minutes with Zak Baris on the horn here talking about the Kyrie Irving trade. Type your questions down below and we'll get it to him. Robert, one of the admins of the Unhappy Hour Sports Show group, he said, not a lot about Zizic out there. What do we know about him? We don't know much, but he's also saying he thinks D-Wade signs with the Cavs by December. You had talked to me about that earlier, Zach, and you said the Bulls, you weren't convinced that they were going to be interested in a buyout. Are you a little bit more convinced now that that's actually...
No, I always said the Bulls would be interested in a buyout.
Oh, wait a minute. I misunderstood you then. I thought you were saying that they're notorious for not wanting to pay players to not be...
They're notorious. Yeah, the Bulls right now want $19 million of the $24 million back.
Oh.
If they buy him out. So, like I said, the Bulls don't want to buy him out. However, the Bulls want to be as bad as they can be this season. They want to first sell some tickets, so he'll be bought out within 2 to 3 months into the season, worst case scenario. He will not be on that roster the entire year. They want to be as bad as can be, so they can be in for that top pick. Because right now the Bulls have one of the worst rosters in the NBA.
Now that Jimmy Butler's gone.
They lost Rondo. They lost Butler. I mean, they're going to be a really bad team.
So you think they keep him around just to sell some tickets and then they dump him? I mean, that's a good strategy, I guess. Shitty to the fans, but whatever.
But, I mean, it's smart, though.
It's a business.
Dwayne Wade's going to sell tickets. He's going to put asses in the seats.
Exactly.
That's what counts in this business.
And Chris Cook is saying Zizic will be a trade piece for someone else, echoing what Zach said. So
I mean, that's the thing. Zizic could be moved in a trade. I know nothing about him other than the fact that he was a first-round pick. He was a stash.
Something cool that you guys go in the Unhappy Hour group. If you're not in the Unhappy Hour group and you want to be, go on Facebook and do a search for the Unhappy Hour Sports Show. One of our Mike Lococo, he posted a whole highlight reel of Zizic, and he says this guy looks good. He could be the steal of the he could be a steal in this. I don't know, but I'm going to go check it out after the show, and I encourage you to do the same. Zach, do you think there's any chance that the Cavs would be willing to move Isaiah Thomas to another team before the season starts or before the end of next season? Or do you think we're rolling with him? In the right
deal, they will move him.
What's that?
Here's the thing. If the opportunity presented itself tomorrow to get John Wall for Isaiah Thomas in that Brooklyn pick, you better believe the Cavaliers would make that move.
How old is John Wall?
26.
26? And you think that would be worth it, even giving away that number one pick to go ahead and...
It's John Wall, and he signed for another 4 years. And he's part of the clutch group. That would 100% keep LeBron in town. And makes the Cavaliers a much better team. Give me John Wall any day over Kyrie Irving.
Really? That much?
I've always said that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know you've been pretty high on him. What's up, Brian? Everybody watching in the chat room, type your questions. The last opportunity, because we're going to be wrapping this up here with Zak Baris. Type your question if you have it.
No, I'm not saying that John Wall deal is ever going to come to fruition. I don't think it ever will. But I'm just saying in that hypothetical situation, yeah, I'd make that deal.
I mean, talk about that team. How close are they to wanting to blow it apart too, with John Wall and Bradley Beal and everything? Are they going to keep riding?
I don't think they're blowing up anything.
Okay, so they're just going to kind of ride with it and stay like that. The Atlanta Hawks. They're like the number 4 seed, number 3 seed, number 5 seed.
Well, they're also young. They're also very young.
Right. So they're thinking maybe they got a chance, wait their turn to fight for Eastern Conference dominance. It's just there's a logjam there with LeBron on the Cavs, and it has been that way for a while. So anyhow, okay. So look, man, this is a lot to cover on zero notice. Look, man, we're gonna have to kind of digest this a little bit. But I did see something interesting. It was kind of like. It was almost like an in memoriam, I think it was. I think I tweeted it out. But it was just like, don't be upset about losing Kyrie. Be happy that the championship happened. And, I mean, that's a good way to look at it. But for me, this doesn't feel great. I understand we theoretically did well in the trade. I understand that. But this still feels crappy. I really liked Kyrie, and I was hoping for a long relationship with him on this team as a cornerstone. And at some point, as LeBron starts getting older and older and older, and maybe scaling his game back, that Kyrie was going to keep stepping his game up. I mean, I guess that was the fairy tale version, and we're not going to get it, but, I mean, am I right to feel a little sad about this, Zach?
I mean, no, I feel sad about it too. I mean, if you would have told me if they would have won, that Kyrie would be the first one traded, I would have been, blown away.
I am kind of blown away today, so I'm going to have to get onto – I'm going to go on to the Unhappy Hour to see what you guys have posted. You got to read up on all these different stories, different angles, and different funny memes. So if you're not in the group, make sure you do it. Search for The Unhappy Hour Sports Show. And as long as you're an Indians, Cavs, Browns, or Buckeye fan, we will let you in the club. So, yeah, it's a lot to digest. I'm happy that, at least on the surface, we were definitely not fleeced in the deal. We got a lot back. Obviously, Isaiah Thomas is 29 years old. He's coming off of a hip injury, and he's ready, only under contract for 1 year. So there's a lot of iffiness there, but I don't think we're done. And we got Jay Crowder, and we got a potential top 5 pick, top 3 pick, maybe number 1 pick. So I'm feeling good about how we got out of a pretty bad situation.
I would say the Cavaliers, based on what people were talking about a week ago, you're getting Dragan Bender and Eric Bledsoe for Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break. The Cavaliers just got a second-team All-NBA point guard, a great defender on the wing, and a potential top 3 selection, which could be the number 1 overall selection in next year's draft.
It's tough to.
I would say that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So that's a kudos to Koby Altman.
I mean, what else was there on the market? And now you've got Derrick Rose as a 6th man.
And maybe Dwayne Wade.
You're going to probably acquire Dwayne Wade as well. I say in the likely scenario. Don't forget, he's not done wheeling and dealing yet. Odds are that they add Wade to this roster in the next couple of months. And odds are, if Cleveland does need, and Cleveland feels they have the components to beat Golden State, and they're one piece away, trust me, they won't hesitate to move that pick, again, for an Andre Drummond type of player that will be available.
Yeah.
Detroit might need a full rebuild, and this would allow them to stink this year, get Brooklyn's pick, rather than picking, being a 35, 38 win team or 30, 36 win team. It would allow Detroit to finally start their rebuild, gain some cap space with Avery Bradley. I don't know if Avery Bradley signed a new deal. I do not think he did. Let me check on Avery Bradley's contract situation right now, because that would determine a lot. That would leave a lot to be determined in Detroit's situation right now.
Yeah, go ahead and take a look at that. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Like you said, you're not suggesting that John Wall is going to be traded, but what you have always been good at, Zach, is kind of picking the players, the Rudy Gobert, the Andre Drummond, the parts that may become available in the next year.
Okay, so here's where we are. I was right. Bradley is a free agent still. Detroit didn't sign him in an extension. So, if that case, it allows you to trade Bradley, it allows you to trade Andre Drummond, stink for next year, acquire a decent pick for Bradley for a playoff team that's looking to add another piece, because he's only signed for $8.5 million this year. So he signed very cheaply. It allows Andre Drummond to be moved in a deal as well. And then Detroit would wind up having two selections at the top of next year's draft, which is extremely talented, and allow them to go to a full rebuild. Remember, in the NBA, what is it? It's an all-or-nothing league. This isn't – you do not want to be stuck. Is the mid-'90s Cavs team stuck in purgatory, winning 40 games a year, 35 to 45 a year, and getting that 6 to 8 seed playoff, and losing in the first round every year to the Pacers or the Knicks? I mean, or the Bulls. We witnessed that the mid-'90s Cavs teams. They couldn't get over the hump. They couldn't even get to the 3 or 4 or 5 seed. And so, we witnessed the same thing year and year over until they finally stunk it up. And they rebuilt the roster. Not correctly the first time, but the second time, after LeBron left, they rebuilt the roster correctly through the draft. And then they built it through free agency and trades, because they didn't build too well through the draft. However, this allows a team like Detroit, where if they're not doing too well, Avery Bradley's a free agent, and do you really want to have to sign Avery Bradley to a $20 million a year deal to be stuck as a 42-win team? No.
Yeah, you want to dump the payroll, you want to get younger, you want to bank on hitting the lotto with one of the young guys to find another cornerstone.
And that's the benefit of the NBA. I mean, look at Philadelphia now. Philadelphia is stacked with young talent. They're stacked with picks. They're stocked with picks. We look at Philadelphia, and Philadelphia, yes, it's a long process. That's why it's called the process. Trust the process. In Philadelphia, it is a long, drawn-out process. But what's Philadelphia going to have? They're going to have Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Dario Saric, and a ton of cap room coming up. So not only are they going to have a bunch of good young pieces and a bunch of good picks, but they're also going to have a ton of cap room to go out and sign 2 max free agents.
Wow. Wonder if
that's how you build a team correctly in today's NBA. Don't forget, they've missed on a couple picks too. They missed on Nerlens Noel, and everybody missed in that draft other than the Bucks. So, that was it. Milwaukee's the only team not to miss, and they got lucky by reaching for Antetokounmpo. That was it. They're the only team to really make out of that draft like bandits. That was a terrible draft otherwise. And, there's literally no film on him, and nobody even saw him play. Giannis, there was literally minimal film on him. He barely played. You look at there. Oh, and they also, and Jahlil Okafor as well. But, again, if they would have taken Porzingis, look where they'd be now. But at the time, again, I thought Jahlil Okafor would be an amazing offensive stud in this league. He just did not match up well with playing with Nerlens Noel. It was a disaster of a situation for him in Philly, and he really regressed and didn't develop. He's another guy who could be had on the cheap this season. I'd look for him to be moved at some point this season.
Man, I'm so excited to see these next moves now. I'm so excited to see this next batch of moves from every team, not just from Koby Altman.
Trust me, the Cavaliers are not going to be sitting pat. If you're Koby Altman right now and you add Wade to this roster, and you add, again, another piece like Drummond. I'm going to keep saying Andre Drummond until this damn thing happens.
Speak it into existence.
I'm telling you, the Cavaliers are not going to sit tight. If they have an opportunity to win the title this year, and they're a very good team who needs a center, and make Tristan Thompson a 6th man, and get a great rebounder like Drummond, who, forces Golden State's hand, who's going to guard Andre Drummond? With that roster. That's the thing. Who's going to guard DeMarcus Cousins? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying New Orleans is going to give up on Cousins yet, but they might. And Drummond, it allows you to re-sign him long term, and you're getting a guaranteed, long term prospect.
Wait, with Drummond, explain that.
The Cavaliers can lock up Drummond to a long term extension as well. He'd be a restricted free agent, and the Cavaliers could lock him up to a large extension. Okay,
yeah, because a lot of it comes down to what we're able to do with the contracts that we already have on the roster. It's tough when you tie your hands together with Ben Wallace and Wally Zerbiak and all the Larry Hughes.
The Cavaliers aren't doing that now. They have movable assets, and again, they're not young. However, they've set themselves up to be in good position now to go out and acquire other talent. Even Jay Crowder's a movable piece. However, I think they'll keep Jay Crowder. I'd be very surprised to see them trade him. But again, the Cavaliers got much deeper this offseason. What did they need? They needed an upgraded bench. They were worn out. They could not compete against Golden State without LeBron on the floor. You had a guy like Wade, and you keep his minutes down, and you keep his games down. Dwayne Wade could be a very valuable piece against a team like that as well. As long as his minutes are kept down, he's fresh going in there into the playoffs in June.
Yeah,
the Cavaliers could be very, very explosive and be very good, yet old, but be very, very good. And keep another run at this conference for another 3 years.
Yeah, and what was the deal with LeBron LeBron off the floor in the finals? The Cavs were like -27 or -31.
Oh, they were horrible. They were just horrible.
And the Warriors were like a +1 or a +2.
We lost all 4 games when LeBron went off the floor. All those games were winnable at one point until he left the floor.
Yeah, he can't play every minute.
They were all winnable at some point.
Exactly.
They all got away from us in the 3rd or 4th quarter when he left the floor for a minute because he needed a breather. You can't play 48 minutes running up and down the court.
Well, look, man. Brian, the final comment here. Brian is saying, we got real good value in the deal, especially if LeBron walks. We have some pieces to help if he wants to go to the dreaded rebuild. And it also allows us to make a move now to make LeBron happy again, pending Gilbert can mend things. Still a sad day here in Cleveland. Hashtag the shot. Hashtag me league. It is a me league.
But here's the thing, though. At least the shot stands for something great now. It's no longer remembered as the shot that Jordan made over Elo.
Yes.
It's now the shot that won us a title. I mean, think about that with Kyrie. Again, someday.
Reverse the curse.
In 15 years, his jersey will be in the rafters in Cleveland. Whether people right now like it or not. People forgave Albert Bell. People forgave Manny Ramirez. There's a statue of Jim Thome outside of Progressive Field.
Yeah, but I heard that all statues have to be destroyed now. We got to tear it down and destroy it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, he turfed Barrington Golf Course back in the late 90s. Yeah, I mean, take his statue down, too. Yes, I mean, you name it, he did something wrong now.
Hey,
I mean, this is getting, all I can say is asking to take down statues now of George Washington. It's getting ridiculous.
No, but if you're the president, you get slammed for even mentioning that. But it's happening. The stories are there.
All I'm saying is, Brian, as you know, I'm not Trump's biggest supporter by any means.
No,
and I'm not a supporter of his. However, the problem is when you start erasing history, it's what the Nazis did in World War II. They erased history.
Yeah, it's what the Nazis did, and it's what ISIS is doing. They're going around smashing statues.
Whether you like it or not, it's part of America's history, and it was a very turbulent time in the 1800s, especially in the 1860s. You know what happened. It was a very turbulent time in this country, arguably the most turbulent time ever. I mean, there was a civil war. The country was divided in two. People's money's changed hands in the southern states. The fact that you're going down and you're, I hate to get off topic with sports. And again, I don't, I hate to get off topic here, but I'm saying, though, when you start to erase history, it's not a good thing. It's there for a reason, and it stood there for a reason for this long. For a reason. It's been there this long for a reason. People weren't complaining about these statues 4 years ago or 8 years ago or even 12 years ago. This is very recent.
Yeah, we've entered Looney Tune town. There's another story here. ESPN has pulled announcer Robert Lee from the Virginia
I was reading that, which I think is ridiculous. He apparently did not feel comfortable calling the game.
He did not feel comfortable.
No.
This Asian American announcer doesn't feel comfortable because his name is similar to the name of a guy from 150 years ago.
I mean, change your name if you don't feel comfortable at that point. I think it's ridiculous, but
you gotta be kidding. Do you have any thoughts on? And
this is another thing. I know what's going to come up, but the Browns players kneeling.
Yes, that's where I was going.
Okay, here's my opinion. And I'd be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I'm going to be honest when I say this. So my mom got pissed at me earlier when I said this. I said, you don't have to like it. You don't. Which, I particularly, my choice would be to stand for the national anthem. However, these players are taking a stand. They're doing what they feel is right. In America, you have the right to protest, and you have freedom of speech for a reason. They have the right to do this. You don't have to like it. However, I respect what they're doing, and that's it. I'm not going to sit there and stop watching the Browns because of it. I personally can't think any lower of the Browns than I already do. They won one game last year. This does not change my opinion on the Browns. It's like the episode where Cartman gets beat up by Wendy in South Park. Nobody could already think any lower of them than they already do. You see what I'm getting at? Like my opinion with the Browns doesn't change at all. I respect the players for having a cause. And, and look at a guy like Seth DeVal, the Browns tight end who spoke out, actually had justification for what he said. I can't sit there. I'm not in his position. I can't. I can't sit there and judge any of these guys. I'm not in their position. If they want to stand up, did I have even a problem with Colin Kaepernick protesting the anthem last year? No, that wasn't my problem with him at all. My problem was him wearing socks with police as pigs on the socks. That was where I drew the line. That's where I was upset. I had nothing to do. I was not upset by him kneeling during the anthem. Do you know how many times I've gone to the bathroom during the national anthem or gotten food?
Why I oughta.
I'd be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I judged someone else for not standing for the anthem. Because how many times have I gotten up and walked out to go to a bathroom break so I didn't miss the game during the anthem? Plenty of times. I'm not going to sit here and lie about it. I've done it. at least 50 to 100 times at sporting events. You know, my friends used to make a joke about it. Oh, Baris is missing another national anthem. You know, I mean, it became a running joke when we'd be at games. Now when I actually stand for the national anthem, I'm actually out during it, my friends laugh at me. They're like, "Oh, I'm shocked you're actually here for the anthem." I'm like, "Yeah, funny guys." You know,
I wrote a whole piece. If you guys haven't seen it, go ahead and take a look. It's on the Unhappy Hour. If you're not a member of the group, join. But I wrote a whole op-ed, if you will, about what's going on, about the Browns players doing what they did, and my thoughts on it. And you know, Isaiah Crowell is kneeling during it. Isaiah Crowell tweeted out a picture of a decapitated policeman in an ISIS style of terrorist propaganda just a couple days before 5 police officers were killed in Dallas. The killer said he wanted to kill policemen, especially white policemen. When you put out fake narratives like hands up, don't shoot, that never happened, that he never tried to surrender and was assassinated, gunned down in cold blood, it never happened. When you keep pushing that lie and trying to demonize white people and demonize police officers, you get unstable people in Dallas killing people. What they're doing is irresponsible, pushing this lie, pushing this myth. LeBron James, everybody has to wear a hoodie because Trayvon Martin jumped a guy and was smashing his head MMA style, ground and pound style, like trying to crack a coconut open.
Under any circumstances, I cannot sit here and defend George Zimmerman under any circumstances. George Zimmerman's a piece of shit.
I don't like the guy either. And I think there's plenty of ambiguous content in there. But the eyewitness there saw Trayvon on top, slamming his head into the concrete, and Zimmerman pulled out a gun and defended himself. That could have definitely killed the person. So, you know, the report was that he got jumped. So if getting jumped and using your Second Amendment right makes people racist, I got a problem with that. If Darren Wilson getting attacked in his car, having to discharge his firearm inside of the car, the guy runs off, turns around, puts his head down and charges like a football player.
Yeah, and shot him in the top of the head. Exactly.
He put his head down, charging at the guy, a 6-foot, an enormous man, charging at this police officer. Really, we got to burn Ferguson down. Here's one of my main takeaway on this, and I'll kind of wrap that point up. But if Colin Kaepernick and Isaiah Crowell and these guys wanted to say, look, while we understand that hands up, don't shoot never happened, we do appreciate that out of Ferguson, more and more communities are using the cameras on the body cameras on the police officers to protect both innocent civilians and protect police officers from erroneous false claims. If Kaepernick came out and said that, if Isaiah Crowell came out and said that, and say, I'm going to take a knee and I'm just going to have a prayer, I'm going to remember some of the things that are changing in this country.
Exactly the point, Brian. Exactly the point. That's the thing. I don't have, you know what the Browns did? The Browns said they were praying last night when they were kneeling.
Mm-hmm.
No. I'm not here to judge them. It's not my position.
And that's what they said. I read it too.
That's what they said. They're not sitting there. They weren't sitting there. They didn't say anything last night. I'm saying in other scenarios they have. I don't necessarily agree with Michael Bennett at all, what he was doing in Seattle. I don't agree with him. I think Michael Bennett's causes and Martellus Bennett the same. I don't support either one of them. I don't believe in the causes what they're going through. I don't. But I'm saying certain players, every player is doing it for a different reason. And not all players. Some players have the same reason. Some players have different reasons for doing it. And that's the thing, and it's going to be peaceful, and they're not going to sit there and they're not going to bash the police, then I'm fine with it. If they're going to sit there and call the cops pigs, all cops are pigs, that's a wrong statement to make because it's incorrect and it's untrue and it's dangerous. And the thing is, I will say this, there are corrupt people in all positions of the world at their job.
Yes.
You don't have any position in the world that is perfect. It's one particular. There are bad basketball players out there that go and do bad things. There are bad football players out there who go and abuse their wives and kick the crap out of their kids.
And there are bad civil rights leaders like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton that shake people down to get millions of dollars for their foundation over false claims of racism. It's been happening for decades.
I agree, and I agree with that. I don't support anything Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton do. I think Al Sharpton's nothing more than a shit disturber. Nothing more.
Yeah, well, and Obama being a community organizer. It was like every opportunity to stir up Trayvon. If I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. To go against police. Oh, the Cambridge police acted stupidly. You don't even know the details of the case, and you're jumping against them. This has been rolling downhill, not just for 8 years, but over the past 8 years, it got really severe. With the love affair that the media, the fake news media, the dinosaur media had with Barack Obama, anything he said was gospel, and they ran with every narrative. Black Lives Matter came up from 2 lies with Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown. And people are getting sick of being called names for doing nothing wrong, for being blamed for the Civil War. I saw a great meme. It said, blacks who were never slaves are upset at whites who were never Nazis protesting the removal of Confederate soldiers built by Democrats, and it's all Trump's fault. And I went, yeah, that pretty much explains it. None of this makes any sense. So anyway, the Browns jumped into the national headlines with that damn story. I'm so sick of the kneeling during the national anthem story. But
Brian, you get what I was saying though about the Browns. With the, you can't think any lower of them.
You can't get any lower.
Literally, go and watch that episode where Cartman was making fun of Wendy in her breast cancer speech, and and after she kicks the crap out of him, he goes, "You guys don't think I'm cool anymore," and all of them are going, "We never thought you were cool," and he goes, "So you guys still do like me?" And they're like, "We never liked you. You've always sucked." Like that's my honest position on the Browns. Can you think any lower of them anyway? No matter what they do.
All right, that's a fair point. I'll give you that. But hey, the Browns are 2-0 in preseason. I know it's preseason, doesn't count, but 2-0 is good.
Brian, as soon as they name Osweiler as the starting QB tomorrow, you might as well just put a loss on your calendar for that Pittsburgh game.
Do you wait? Are you saying that they did, or you think that they're going to?
I think they're going to.
I don't.
Really hope not.
I don't.
Part of me is just saying. Part of me is going to sleep tonight, going, "Don't name Osweiler, sir. Don't name Osweiler, sir." And then he's going to be named the starter. Part of me is going in and okay, Osweiler's already the starter, and when they go and cut his ass tomorrow, I'll feel much better. I would much rather see Ketzler as the starter than Osweiler. We know what Brock Osweiler can do, and it's nothing. Brock Osweiler's won a Super Bowl. Think about that. Brock Osweiler's won a Super Bowl. Well, he didn't personally win, but he was on a team that won it.
Yeah,
and the team went to the playoffs this year. Not because Brock Osweiler was so good. He was terrible. He's terrible. 6 for 8 for 25 yards and a pick. If you would have told me, guess Brock Osweiler's game numbers the other night, I would have told you he completes 75% of his passes with an interception. And by the way, I want to say something. The Browns' defense looked awesome.
Yeah.
I know they looked young and they looked fast.
Finally.
Last year, you didn't see that. Last year, you saw a bunch of rookies on the field who didn't know what the hell they were doing. And you go out and you add some talent this year. You get another year out of Emmanuel Ogbah. And I think Myles Garrett just changed the perception of that defense. I mean, wow. Is he fast off the ball? I mean, Jabril Peppers. I mean, those guys, wow.
Who was in when they were playing left end? I watched the highlight. I was kind of taking in the game.
The first stringers were in when Garrett was in.
I'm trying to remember. It might have been second quarter. It was the left defensive end. The ball was snapped. He took like a half-second stutter step, came right behind the left tackle, and went right up the gut for a sack on Eli Manning. I mean, it was a beautifully designed
Joe Schobert.
And now Tank Carter's out for the season with a torn ACL.
It sucks, but injuries are part of football as much as they suck.
So depth is important.
You know what? Here's the thing. I give Greg Williams a lot. I was surprised at how good Jabril Peppers was. Supposedly he's had an unbelievable couple weeks of practice. He looked unbelievable in that game the other night, returning punts. He reminded me I don't know about you, but it gave me that whole illusion of Charles Woodson over again in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes, it did.
Of how good Woodson was back in his day. I mean, Woodson was even good up until his final season. He was an all-pro.
Well, maybe it's the Michigan connection why we're thinking that, but I'm thinking that too. I'm seeing
It's not even that. He literally is a reincarnation of Charles Woodson when you look at it. The size, the strength, the ability to play on both sides of the ball. To sit there and be able to play defensive end, outside linebacker, corner, safety, be able to play running back, wide receiver. I mean, he's all over the field returning punts. He just had so much ability in college. And I didn't love him in college. I didn't think he was great in coverage. But if you watch that game again from the other night, his coverage skills are much improved. I think that's just with good coaching. You know what? And if Peppers is a stud, the Browns defense is going to be great. I'm not saying this year it's going to be great, but I expect it to be much improved. I expect them to have a lot more sacks than they did a year ago. I expect the O-line to be better. I don't expect the quarterback play to be any better. But again, if you build the defense the right way, and you build the offense the right way, and then next year you go out and get your quarterback and a receiver, they have 2 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks and a ton of money in free agency next year. Next year is year 3 of the rebuild. Year 3. That's when they said they were going to make major improvements. I don't necessarily think they're going to win 11 games this year. I don't see them winning more than 4 to 6. However, if you win 5-6 games this year and you're able to get your quarterback and move back up in the draft and go and get your quarterback, and go and get other skill position players, and then you go in the free agent market and you sign strategic free agents and you do a good job at hammering that out, the Browns have the potential to be a very, very good football team in a year or two. You see them building the team the right way. And I'm telling you, Brian, if this goes correctly, I'm not saying it will, but if this goes correctly, you'll see the NFL completely change in terms of the future. The Browns rely on draft capital more than any other team. Their class from last year started to look really good this preseason. Guys like Schobert, Carl Nassib, those young guys were looking good.
Yeah, the second, third,
young
fourth
guys
round
like
pick.
Brian Body Calhoun. You had younger guys looking good. Last year's draft class looking good, and this year's draft class looking exceptional. It changes the whole outcome. It changes the whole outcome if you're the Browns and how they're able to manipulate the trade market.
Maybe in the respect that most teams don't stockpile draft picks like the NBA does. Analytically,
yeah,
is that what you're getting at?
But and that's the thing is the Browns made a trade to put Brock Osweiler in the roster because they had excess cap room to go and get a second-round pick out of it.
Yeah, they purchased that contract to buy a second-round pick.
You'll see other teams start doing that as well. It's a very smart strategy. It's very baseball and basketball-like. Baseball, this would piss off a lot of the football guys and a lot of the general managers if this strategy works. Because you watched it with baseball. You watched them drive out all the old-time general managers in baseball, for these analytically based teams because of the Indians in the 90s. On how the Indians built through the draft. And the Indians were the original, they weren't a Moneyball team, but the Indians were the ones, trading for prospects and everything. Oakland did it. And you watched other organizations do it. You even watch the Yankees now don't go and piss away all their money in free agency. They're building through the draft as well. Scouting's improved in baseball, or at the point where back in the day you could have a hit in the 40th round. Now what's happening is all the good players, you see a lot of these guys are no longer boom or bust picks in the first round. You don't see crappy players, you don't see a draft where the first 7 guys don't even make the majors anymore in baseball. Now it's all the top picks are suddenly the top prospects in baseball because scouting is so much better. Basketball is the same way as well. If you have a good front office and you know how to manipulate acquiring picks and acquiring talent, and you're strongly based analytically, you're going to be a good front office. Look at Daryl Morey in Houston. Look at Koby Altman or David Griffin in Cleveland. Look what he was able to do in Cleveland. It drives out the old basketball minds. Pat Riley's always been an unbelievable recruiter. You drive out the old basketball minds like the Joe Dumars, who don't necessarily believe in analytics. Look at Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
The NBA has completely changed. The successful franchises rely on analytics. Look at a guy like Danny Ainge who relies strongly on that as well. And acquiring assets. That's what these guys do. It's all about building for the future and then turning those future assets into current picks, current players. It's all about building for the future. Everybody's looking 5 to 6 years ahead. You have to in all these sports now. People didn't used to do that. But now with the way sports teams are ran and franchises are ran, you don't want to have your team, let's play for the now and totally give up on tomorrow. One of the reasons Shapiro in Cleveland never succeeded was he was never willing to build for today.
It was always down the road.
You look at the Indians now, and you take a team like the Indians and you go, okay, who would have ever thought that last year, before we acquired Andrew Miller, that we would have acquired Andrew Miller, said Edwin Encarnacion a $20 million a year deal on a 3-year deal, and would have traded for Jay Bruce, I would have said, get the out of here.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that either. That's very uncharacteristic for this team.
But again, that may have just been the Shapiro. That may have not been Antonetti's philosophy or even the Dolan's. We witnessed exactly what Mark Shapiro did when he went into Toronto. He did exactly what he did in Cleveland. Got rid of Encarnacion and tried to replace him with a platoon of Kendry Morales and a couple other guys. You know, that's what he did.
Well, it's going to be interesting watching the Browns. I know Brian in the chat room is saying, it's funny, did anyone else see that they put Hayden in at free safety in the third quarter? You think...
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I didn't notice either. I don't know if we should be worried about Hayden or what, but I wanted to ask about some of those hits. You mentioned Brian Body Calhoun.
That was not... I mean, again, where do you want him to hit Odell Beckham? You can't hit him high, so you got to go low.
Yeah, and is that an unintended consequence for trying to reduce these concussions?
I mean, that's what happens. That's why there's more ACL injuries now, because you can't hit guys high anymore. You can't tackle high. You got to go low.
When I played, I couldn't stand people that would chop block and go with your legs. It was the most it was the most horrible way to play that game. I can't stand it. But, I mean, of course, with our defensive coordinator, every play is going to be under scrutiny, and then Odell Beckham collapsing in the back room on the way to the coach, the trainer's room. That was some scary stuff. I don't necessarily care, but I don't know. It was a tough look. I will say this. I've watched Deshaun Kaiser 2 games now, and especially in that first game, that guy can make every throw. He's the first quarterback in a Browns jersey that's looked like a legit quarterback in a minute. It's been a minute. Maybe back to Derek Anderson, a guy that just looks the part and plays the part. I don't want to see Kaiser running as much as he does, but based on what I've seen, especially as the number 2 guy last week or yesterday, I feel like he should be the guy to start the season. I feel like he's the most talented.
The one thing that worries me is if you put him in there and he stinks, his confidence is completely shot and he's done. That's why let him get some experience sitting on the bench. I would start Kessler. I would completely cut Osweiler from the roster. I think he stinks.
Oh, just cut him and eat the salary?
I think he stinks. He's not worthy of being on an NFL roster. He's terrible.
Harsh. Yeah, I'm not a fan either. What's to like? All right, well, we got 2 more Browns preseason games. Buckeyes are you a big Buckeye fan? We never talk Buckeyes, do we?
I'm a huge fan of the Buckeyes.
Why, but we just never get around to talking Buckeyes.
I don't think we ever have time to talk Buckeyes. We talk about the 3 Indians. We talk about the 3 Cleveland sports, and we rarely even get to the Indians.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'll give you that. Well, then let's do this. As we wrap this up, final questions. Now we're talking Buckeyes. We've pretty much exhausted our material. Any final questions, type them in here. What are your thoughts on the Bucs, what you've seen so far, and getting into the season with that big
preseason?
Oklahoma?
Let's see. I bet you they go and clobber Oklahoma on week 2.
A clobbering of the number 7 team?
Yeah. Just like they did last year when they annihilated Oklahoma, in Norman.
Man, I would be happy to see that. Get that nice top 10 win under your belt to start the season off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This team is a contender. JT Bear coming back for his 17th season, it seems like. he's like Tom Brady over there. But, yeah, man, I'll take it. Good coaching and an experienced quarterback and always a ton of talent in the pantry for that team. So, anyhow, Zach, it's been a crazy day with the Kyrie trade. We'll have a little bit more time to digest all the finer points of this in the future and look up some of the details on that center. And I'll tell you what, man, you and I we'll do this again. I don't know when. We'll
talk again next week, and then we'll talk again next week, or maybe even more this week. Once I have a chance to talk to a couple of people from the Cavs front office, we can talk some more.
Okay, well then let's plan on that. And as always, I want to say I appreciate you joining us. Thank you for the chat. And if you're not following him on Twitter, he's at Zbaris. That's ZBARIS. And we are the Unhappy Hour Sports Show here on the TNAM Radio Network here at TheNewAmericanMedia.com. So anyway, Zach, thank you for your time. You have a good night. Go Cavs. See you, Kyrie. And I'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, take care.